Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Harunas, and in this video we will talk about our assignment 2 report. So, for the extraction, this report explores the utilization of a combined approach using k-means clustering and autoencoder to accurately identify penguin species based on the penguin dataset. The main objective was to improve clustering performance while maintaining model interpretability. By incorporating silhouette coefficient with TensorFlow, the result not only demonstrates enhanced clustering accuracy but also provide valuable insight into feature importance interaction. Accurate species identification is essential for ecological and biological research purposes as it contributes to understanding biodiversity and implementing effective conservation strategies. Traditional method of species identification often rely on manual measurement and expert knowledge, which can be time-consuming and prone to human error. In this study, we aim to leverage machine learning technique to improve the accuracy and efficiency of penguin species identification by harnessing complex patterns in the data. To tackle this task, we select the penguin dataset, which contains several morphological features for each penguin, including human length, human depth, flipper length, body mass, and sex. This dataset was chosen due to the relevance in ecological study and its clear qualification problem. It serves as an ideal demonstration of the effectiveness of machine learning technique in clustering tasks. The primary objective of this study is to accurately cluster the penguin data into the respective species using a combined approach of autoencoder and clustering. Next, I'll pass it to others.
Now I will be presenting about the algorithm which is in experimental setup. So in this section we have two algorithms. The first one is autoencoders and the second one is k-means. So let's first go to the autoencoders. So autoencoders are a type of neural network used for unsupervised learning, primarily for dimensionality reduction and feature learning. They consist of two main parts, which is encoder and decoder. The first part is encoder. The function of encoder is to compress the input data into a lower dimensional representation. Then they are called the encoded data. The second part is decoder. The functionality of decoder is to attempt and reconstruct the input data from the encoded representation. So for some students or some people, they are confusing between the differentiation between the autoencoders and label encoders. So label encoders are usually be used in data pre-processing, and it is not an algorithm like autoencoders because autoencoders are a machine learning algorithm. So autoencoder is used to compress the high dimensional input data into a lower dimensional encoded representation. These compressed representations retains the essential features of the data while reducing noise and redundancy. Manually selecting the most relevant features for clustering can be challenging and may not always capture complex patterns in data. But autoencoders automatically learn the most important features through the training process. The encoder part of the autoencoder learns to represent the data in a more compact and informative way. So that is one of the advantages or one of the advantages for autoencoders, that they can simplify the high dimensionality data into the lower dimensionality data. So there are several steps of conducting autoencoders in our solutions. Firstly, we have to define the autoencoder model. Then the encoder layer compresses the data to a lower dimensional space, which is we use encoding underscore dim. Next, the decoder layer tries to reconstruct the original data from the encoded representation. The model is compiled with the Adam optimizer and mean square error loss MSE loss function so that our result can be in more beautiful and more better. The autoencoder is trained to minimize the reconstruction error, meaning it learns to compress and decompress the data as accurately as possible. After training, The encoder part of the autoencoder is used to transform the original data into its lower dimensional encoded representation. So that's all for the autoencoder. Second, we move to K-means algorithm. So we are getting used to K-means algorithm because we always use these algorithms in our classes. So K-means is a clustering algorithm that partitions the data into K clusters, where where each data points belongs to the cluster with the nearest mean. So this capital K means the number of clusters that we have to use inside our algorithm. Basically, directly applying K-means to high dimensional data can result in poor clustering performance because the distance between points become less discriminative. So, we apply K-means to the lower dimensional encoded data. The algorithm operates on a more meaningful representation of the data. This often leads to a better defined clusters that reflect the underlying structure of the data. So we can see here that K-means and autoencoders are related to each other. They K-means need autoencoders to make K-means conduct the data in a more efficient way. The reduced dimensionality of the encoded data also makes K-means faster and less resource intensive compared with high dimensionality, allowing it to efficiently cluster even larger dataset. And there are several steps of conducting K-means. Firstly is we have to apply K-means to our encoded data from autoencoder that we get just now. The number of clusters is specified to 6 in this case. So I think I forgot, I miss typing in this code. It's actually 6 clusters. Next, we have to assign cluster label. The cluster labels from K-means are added to the original data frame, indicating the cluster assignment for each data point. And lastly, we have to visualize the clusters. We use a scatter plot, and it is used to visualize the clusters. Each point is colored according to its cluster table. In this example, two features, Coulomb length mm and Coulomb depth are used for our visualization.
So on this part is I'm going to talk about the experimental setup. So in this part is actually where we try to make modification on our codes, try different configuration and try to reach the best Silhouette coefficients. So the first thing I do is just to test different variation of validation split. As you can see, this is our first choice is to do validation split 0.2, and you can see that we got 0.83, 0.49 and 0.82 for the coefficient as Silhouette score. Comparing to the validation split on 0.5, you can see that the autoencoder based clustering got lower Silhouette score comparing to the validation split 0.2. So but other than that, it's actually quite similar. So we can safely conclude from our experimental setup, the best validation split is 0.2. Next is we do the feature selection. This is where from our table we select which column that we want to include in our training. So this is my first attempt where I include only 3 features, and when I train and do the Silhouette coefficient, I get this result. But when I comparing to like what from below result is that I got much lower Silhouette coefficient. So I can safely conclude that I need to include also sex feature in our feature selection so that we can get the best Silhouette coefficient. And last but not least is where we do the hyperparameter optimization. So like based on our autoencoder algorithm, we can choose what type of optimizer we want. So I try only 3 types, which is RMS-Probe, stochastic gradient descent, and ADAM. So RMS-Probe is actually an adaptive learning rate optimization algorithm that adjusts the learning rate for each parameter based on the magnitude of the gradients. So as you can see, we got 0.91 and 0.85 for the Silverhood score. Comparing to SGD, SGD is a widely used optimization algorithm that updates the model parameters by taking a step in the direction of negative gradient of the loss function. And we got 0.65 for the case came with encoded data, and 0.82 for the case autoencoded basic clustering with original dataset. So you can see that the accuracy for Silverhood score become much more lower. And last but not least, the adaptive moment estimation, which is another optimization algorithm that combines the benefits of momentum and RMS-Probe. So comparing to the previous algorithm optimizer, we can get the Silverhood score 0.49 and 0.82, which is much lower than SGD. So from the hyperparameter optimization, we can safely conclude that RMS-Probe is the best optimizer in our case study. So last but not least, actually, okay, that's
So now let's talk about the result for our dataset from our experimental setup. So first, this is our elbow method for optimal K graph, which is when we see we got the optimal number that we choose, the number of cluster that we choose is number 6, because the number 6 is the elbow for the optimal K. Now for the figure 2, which is the k-means clustering for the original dataset, you can see that the dataset is the data point is overlap, and the distribution and the gap between the data points is too wide, so which isn't good. And even though we see the cluster is so messy, but the silhouette coefficient that we got is 0.83, which is quite high for the messy clustering that we have here. So now let's go to the figure 3, which is we encoded the dataset. We do the k-mean clustering on the encoded data. So we can see the data and the distribution is very nice, very neat, compared to the other one, to the figure 2, which is quite messy. And we can see that the data point also didn't overlap too much, just like the other first. Even though the data point isn't overlap and the distribution between data point isn't too messy, too wide, but the silhouette score we got here, which is 0.495, which shows that it is an okay clustering, but it necessarily isn't optimal at all. So we can do something to make it more optimal, to get more like a tighter cluster than this. And next is we do clustering on the auto we do auto encoded based clustering on the original dataset. So we can see the distribution seems more tighter than the other two, not too spread out, but and we see the region is more denser than the other two. Even and but even though we can see the overlap, but it's still quite neat and nice than the original one, the first one, which is quite messy, and the data points seems the gap between data points seems too close, seems denser. Because of this, we calculate the silhouette score and get 0.819, which is very good, which suggests it is a good clustering, a better clustering than the last one, which is 0.4. So based on this, we know that k-mean clustering on auto-encoded data and auto-encoded based clustering on the original dataset is much better than we do k-mean clustering on the original data, because what autoencoder does is it discards the irrelevant noise or redundant information in the original data. So hence it make the data points not to overlap to each between the other data point, and also it makes sometimes it makes the gap and the distribution between the data point more closer or not too spread out.
Thank you. And finally, the conclusion. The combination of autoencoder and k-means clustering significantly enhances the accuracy of the clustering result compared to using k-means alone. The silhouette score obtained after applying the autoencoder demonstrates better defined clustering, indicating successful reduction of noise and improved pattern capture. For example, the penguin belonging to different species were more clearly separated, leading to more accurate species identification. Silhouette coefficient with TensorFlow offer valuable insight into the importance of individual features in the clustering process. We discovered that features such as human length, human depth, and flipper length make substantial contribution to the clustering outcome. This interpolated aspect is crucial for validating the clustering result and aligning them with domain knowledge. Autoencoder effectively reduces the dimension layer of dataset while retaining essential information. This not only improves the performance of successful k-means clustering but also facilitates easier visualization and interpretation of the data. By reducing the dataset to a lower dimensional representation, we gain a clearer understanding of the underlying structure and relationship within the penguin data. Our successful completion of this project was the result of the collaborative effort of our team members, with each individual playing a crucial role. First, data preprocessing and visualization, Muhammad Fazlun Asharid. Autoencoder design and training, Hazim Imran. K-means clustering and evaluation, Haras Nasrallah. Silhouette coefficient with TensorFlow, Muhammad Harunas. Throughout this project, we gained several key learnings such as the effectiveness of combined technique. Our study demonstrates the significant improvement achieved by combining deep learning techniques such as autoencoder with traditional clustering algorithms like k-means. The enhanced performance and interoperability of clustering outcome validate the power and potential of this combined approach. The incorporation of silhouette coefficient with TensorFlow to provide explanation and insight into the model decision-making process provide invaluable going forward. We recognize the significance of model interoperability in ensuring transparency and building trust in machine learning model. For future work, we propose the following potential avenue of expression as experimenting with different autoencoder architecture such as convolutional autoencoder or variational autoencoder may lead to further improvement in dimensionality, reduction, and clustering performance. Exploring this alternative architecture can help uncover new patterns and enhance the accuracy of species identification. Conducting more extensive hyperparameter tuning for both the autoencoder and k-means algorithm could potentially yield even better clustering results. By thoroughly exploring the hyperparameter space, we have the opportunity to optimize the performance of our model. Applying our combined methodology to other datasets with similar clustering problems would help validate the generalizability of our approach. Exploring the application of autoencoder and clustering algorithm to different species or ecological studies could uncover new insight and enhance our understanding of biodiversity, investigating the integration of autoencoder with other clustering algorithms such as DBSCAN or hierarchical clustering could provide alternative approach to improve clustering outcome. Exploring the synergy between different algorithms can lead to enhanced performance and more comprehensive analysis. This is all from us. Thank you.